Hello guys, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use some of the key foundational JavaScript features that will help you to write better programs and write clean code that will perhaps build better application. These are some of the key features which are building block of JavaScript, but many people do not understand clearly why sometimes they get errors that they get. So in this series of Java nuts and bolts, I'll be showing you some of the key fundamental features that you can implement to help you to become a better JavaScript developer. So let us dive in and see this first video, which involves being careful while you're using line breaks. So the first thing I'm going to do, let me just open the inspector tool. So I'm doing this so that I can be able just to be accommodative to those people who do not have or rather have not installed any text editor for this video. If you go to console now, we can use this for writing JavaScript code. So let me just show you what I mean. If I have a function here, let us just call this function test, and of course I'm going to implement it as a function, and then inside this function what I'm going to do is that I'm going to declare two variables. And for this case I'm going to say let first equals, or rather let me just leave it like that so that you can be able to understand what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to set another variable second, and I'm going to give it a value of 2. And then down here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to console.log. I'm going to log out this first, like so. Then I'm also going to console.log the second guy, right? So I'm just going to call this function. Let us call it the test function. So now what I've done in this function is that I've declared two variables, and as you can see in the first variable, I've not inserted any number, or rather I've not initialized any number for this first variable. And for the second variable, I've initialized a value of 2. And for the first variable, there is no initialization. For that matter, there is also no semicolon to show that this variable has been initialized at the end of this variable. So if I run this function, let me just show you what will happen. Okay, sorry, there is an error here. Let me just do this again. This should be second, then closing parameter like so, and then let's call this function again. Like so. Now, once I run this function, you see something interesting happens here. It gives me undefined and a value of 2. Why is this so? So the reason why you're getting this value is because JavaScript by default, when it sees a value, or rather when it sees a declaration with a line break, then it will automatically insert a semicolon at the end of this first line here, assuming that this line ends here. That is, if this second value here, or rather if this second line does not make sense when joined together with this first line. So let me just use another example that you can be able to understand. So by default, JavaScript assumes that this first line here ends here, and so it puts a semicolon towards the end of this first line. And as a result, this first value will end up having a value of undefined, which means it has not been declared. And so that is why you're getting this value of undefined here. So let me use another example so that you can be able to see this clearly, another interesting example. So on this second example, let me just call this const compute, and of course it's going to be a function like so, and in this function let me just do like this. I'm going to use two if statements. I'm going to say if number is greater than 5, then do what? Then return return number, and then here I'll just put a line break, return number plus 2, right? I'm going to use another if statement, and I'm going to say if number is greater than 3, then do what? Then also return, but in this case I'm going to say return number, or rather return, then I'm going to put a line break, then I'm going to say number multiply by 2, right? And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to call this function. Down here I'm just going to say console.log, and I'm going to call this function. I'm just going to call my function, this is compute, this should be compute, not computer. Compute with a value of 6. That will mean that when I call this function with a value of 6, then this first if statement will be evaluated, since I'm using 6 here, which is greater than 5. And then I'm also going to call this function here with a value of 4, which means this second if should be evaluated in that case. Let us try and run this and see what it will give us. In this case, I just press enter. Syntax error, that is where, okay, sorry, this should be a semicolon here. Let me just clear this. Let me just do like this. This should be a semicolon. Let me run this code again. Oh, sorry, number not defined. Just input number here. And then let us try again to run this. So now when you run this function, you see that it gives you 8, then undefined. That is the first console log gives you 8, then the second console log gives you undefined. And why is that so? This is because when you run this code, this number here that you're passing in this function, JavaScript will check at this first if statement here. You have written return number plus 2. So JavaScript will check number and then the second symbol or number that follows this variable number. In this case, it is a plus sign. And so JavaScript will check, okay, this is a variable, right? Can it be followed with a plus sign? Yeah, even after the line break, and then it will see that is okay. And for that matter, it will not insert a line break in this case. When you come to the second if statement, JavaScript will check this return statement. There is a line break. Is it valid for this variable to follow a line break? And then it will assume, no, that is not valid. Why should I put a variable after a return statement? So it will assume this statement ends here at return. And so what it will do, it will insert a semicolon at the end of this return statement. And as a result, this will prompt this second if statement to have undefined value. Yeah, since you are returning nothing here. In other words, what it has done, it has placed a semicolon here. So I'm returning nothing, and that is why if I run this code, you are going to see you're going to see undefined, right? This value here, undefined. The reason is JavaScript has inserted a semicolon here. While in this first if, it checks if the number here and the symbol or the value that follows number is valid. In this case, a variable can be followed with a value, or rather with a symbol of plus, which is okay. So it won't insert any of the semicolon in this case. But in our second case here, in our second if, it will check if a return value, is it valid to be followed by this variable? No. And so it will assume that this first line here ends here, and so it will insert a semicolon here, which returns a value of undefined. But in our first case, we are running 6 plus 2, which is 8, so it won't insert any semicolon in this case. So guys, be very, very careful while breaking lines, because it might end up causing you or rather throwing a lot of these undefined errors. When you get undefined errors and you presume that your code has been written very well, then check if the code has been written correctly, in the sense that do you have line breaks which can cause such result. So to resolve this, of course, we can simply do this. We can simply remove like this line break in our case here, and then just to have a much more cleaner code, we can just have something like this. And then now, if you can guess, if I run this code now, we have a value of 8 and 8. That is because now JavaScript resolves now to see that your code has been written well, and now it understands it clearly. So guys, be careful while writing or while declaring a variable and you have break lines in your code, because it may end up throwing error in your code. So if you like this video, please leave a comment, please subscribe, please share, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And until we meet again, bye bye.